Hi there. So today we're going to talk about some different conditional statements that we have. Building on top of the last conditionals we were talking about last time in class, we talked about if, else, and else if. Today we're going to talk about switch, which is similar to those conditionals, and I'm going to write it out for you here, and then we'll talk about what it's actually doing. So accidentally didn't mean to do that there. So we have switch, and then we have in the parentheses we have a variable inside of there, and that's going to tell us, it's going to be a value that the switch is going to analyze later on down in the statement. So we have switch variable, and then we have inside the brackets here we're going to have different cases. So we have like case 1, and in here we're going to do something like case 1, let's just do some console.logs, like console.log x equals 1. Okay, and then at the end we're going to do a break. So yeah, we can write it like that. And then the break statement needs to be there to make the JavaScript not continue running for this switch itself. And it's like, the point of this is that we can have multiple cases, like case 2, basically the same kind of stuff here. I'll just copy it down, console.log x equals 2, case 3, and then you kind of get it, like it's just the same. It's almost like writing an if-else, like if x equals 1, then do this. Otherwise, if x equals 2, then do that. And we can see, like, if we run this, and let me click the little wrench here to open the console, we should be getting a result down there if I didn't do this wrong, which I might have done. Let's see here, x equals 10, switch. Okay. What's going on here? Looking back at my last answers here. See if we can figure out what's going on here. So that one's running. Can't do it in there. X equals, it's because x is not equal to any of those ones. Okay, so that's why. So when we set x equal to something, it's going to check, and then if it's equal to that thing, it's going to print out what we typed in there. So we have x equals 1, we can do x equals 2, it'll run the second one, and so on. And then at the bottom we can have a default case, and this is going to run without matching a condition. So we can say console.log x is not equal to any above, or something like that. And we don't need to have a break after that one because it's the last one. But default can be placed in other places in the code. I don't know if that would make sense really to do it, but it's possible. If you place it somewhere else, you do have to add the break. But anyway, we run that. If we did have that back to x equals 10 up there, we would run that default at the end. And this is like, the switch is kind of like if else, like I was saying. It's got some slightly different behaviors, and it can be easier to use in some circumstances. So, but we can see, like, if we compare it, like x equals 1, then we can do the same thing that we did up here. yeah, so like using using the switch is pretty similar to this. It can be a little bit of a cleaner, easier to read kind of way to write it, because we don't have to actually define, like, you know, the left and right hand side of the value every time we write it out, as we do up here in the switch. You know, we can see that every time we're comparing it to x, which is you know, we understand that just from knowing that it's a switch statement. If it's an if-else and they're if-elses that are chained, we'll have to look inside each parentheses to see what is actually being evaluated here. Like if it's a switch, we know that every time it's the x that's being evaluated in our code. So yeah. Let's go ahead and get rid of that for now, and then I will talk about one more thing, which is we're talking about two more things, but the next one is nested conditionals. So this is, we're going to use like if, else if. We want to know that we can nest these inside of each other, is what it's called. So it's basically just like putting other if-elses inside of ones that already exist. So like, let's say number elephants equals 5. So if number elephants equals 1, you can say there's only one. If okay, so we already know this. Let's run it and make sure it prints something out. So we can see here that we're running our else if, and that's working. And then what we can say here is that we can put another if else inside here. This is what nesting is. So if we have elephant's name equals George is the one elephant. Okay, so basically we're saying that we're checking if one condition is true. If it is, then we're going in and checking the next condition, and then, like, you know, this nesting means that it'll only check the nested condition if the first one is already true. It's not going to check it, of course, if it's you know, if there's more than one. This one's not going to run because it's not inside that code block. So if we have elephant's name equals George, and then we'll have to declare that variable also. So let's see. And we'll run that, see that it works. Right, it's still running the second else if there at the bottom, so let's run it when we change to 1. So we can see, like, we get there's only one elephant, and then we also get George is the one elephant. So we say number of elephants equals 1, that's true. And then we get number elephant's name is equal to George. So first it says, is number of elephants equal to 1? Yes, that's true. And then it goes and checks. After it prints that out to the console, it says, is elephant's name equal to George? And then it checks, it is, yes. And so it runs the code inside here. And we can also, you know, we can chain these just like other else ifs. It's exactly the same, you know, let's just use an else here. Okay, so if it's not George, let's say elephant's name equals Tom. The one elephant is not George. Okay, so again, it runs the first one, and then it checks, is it George? No. Otherwise, it'll print something else out. And as we were saying, that only happens if number of elephants is equal to 1. If it's more than 1, it's going to run the second conditional, and those name conditionals are never going to check. It's just going to run the, this evaluates to false. It skips over all of this code. It goes down here and then checks the else if down here instead, and then just runs the block inside of there. And so we can, these are these if else's are nested inside the first one. We can keep nesting conditionals like that, over and over. We're going to write true, just to show you, you can keep going as many times as you want. There's no limit to how many nested ifs you can have inside of each other. So that can be useful if you have a certain condition, and then after that you want to check something else within, given that that first condition is true, you want to keep building on top of that true condition, and you keep going with the nested conditions inside of that. So finally, we want to talk about return statements. So return is you put return inside of a function. So I'm going to go and grab all of this and put it inside of a function. Print gonna move that up. So we have print elephant name. These we can run the function, and these things will still get printed to the console, but it's not going to. The function is not going to return anything yet. So when we have a return statement, it looks like this. It means that first of all, we're exiting the function at that point, and we can return a value also from the function here. So maybe we want to return elephant's name from the function. So we'd have elephant's name. The function is going to run and check all of these, and then I don't think this is going to make sense actually. We have elephant's name. This is George. Let's make a new variable to return. Actually, it would make more sense. So elephant group is together equals true. Okay, so we'll have just like that variable. We'll change it inside of, depending on which if else there is. So maybe if there's only one elephant, we'll say elephant group is together equals false. And then if there's more than one, we'll say elephant group is together equals true. Okay, and then this way we're setting the variable. We declare it inside of the function. We can change it inside of the function depending on the conditions, and then we can return that variable at the end. So you can see what happens when we run this print elephant name. It's not going to print out that true or false that we declared yet, because we're only running the function down here. We're not console.logging out the return statement. So if we want that to print to the console, we would have to run the function inside of a console.log, and then the return statement is going to return the value inside of this console.log, and then it will print out to the what do you call it? Console, to the console here. So just running the function by itself, the value still gets returned, but we're not printing it out anywhere. There's a difference between just returning it and printing it out. So like another way we could get a better idea of this is saying we could set the return value of the function to be a variable. So if we did like that, function value equals print elephant name. Again, this is not going to by itself return true or false, but then if we could console.log the function value, and that is going to give us the true false value based on, whatever is returned here. It'll print out, so function runs, the variable is set inside the if else's, the variable returns. Down here, a new variable is set to be the returned value from the function, and then down here in the console.log we print that value that we just set into the console. So that's switch statements, nested conditionals, and the return statement for functions. We want to do a project today where we're going to use the switch statements we just learned about, and we're going to use some JavaScript dates and some built-in date functions and .inner.html to change some elements for a web page. So basically what we want to do is we want to create a switch statement that prints out, like, it takes the current day of the week and it prints out based on the day of the week. It's just going to print out, like, today is Tuesday, today our class is Tuesday. If it was Wednesday, it would print out a different day. So every time you open this project up, it should print out the day of the week that it currently is using the switch statement. So, and you could add a little coloring and backgrounding and stuff to make it look a little nicer. So that's what we can work on today as a project. Print out the day of the week using switch statements, and that'll be it for today. So thank you guys.